Hi. Hi, this is Paul, and I'm the lead technician at the How to Linux Research Labs. And today I'm going to show you how to install Visual Studio Code on Ubuntu Linux 22.04. Okay, let's get started. Now, Visual Studio Code is a very popular cross-platform code editor. I don't like to call it a text editor, I call it a code editor. It's not quite an IDE, although I do believe you can add an extension that will run the code within the window of the program. I personally like to code in an IDE or editor and run my code in the terminal. Okay. Now, let me show you that. First of all, okay, yeah, you can install it through a simple command in the terminal. On a Debian and Ubuntu systems, you can use a simple apt install command. You can go to the software store on Ubuntu here, the Ubuntu software store here. You can install it with a simple click of a button, and that's fine. It's all that's in my opinion, it's kind of too easy. I'd rather just do it kind of the longer way. Then, of course, if you read here, you see a lot of bad reviews, actually. I don't know what that's all about, but you do see bad reviews here. And I'm not sure what the version is. Usually sometimes it's behind what the actual vendor versions are usually, so it's a little behind. Although it will update for you when you do a apt update upgrade command. If you download it manually, I don't remember if it actually upgrades new version in the terminal. So you have to keep up on it. You have to go to the website and make sure that there's a new version or not. You can see the 1.73 is the version, the current version here. And when you go to the store here, it doesn't really tell you what version, but usually kind of lags behind. That's why it's always good to kind of just do it from the website. Okay, so, and it says unsafe, which means don't let this throw you off. Unconfined. Actually, that's probably good for an editor, because it should have access to your file system. Now, if it was in a snap environment or a Flatpak environment, maybe it wouldn't have access to your file system. That would be probably not very good for an editor or an IDE, because it should be able to have access to your file system. So I wouldn't worry about this. But let's do it the long way, okay? And I just want to show you really quick that I don't have it already installed. So you don't see any Visual Studio Code anywhere here in any of these sections here. So it's not already installed. So we're going to do it from scratch right now. Okay, so we're going to clear the screen there, okay? So yeah, we're not going to use the store or the terminal. We're going to go right to the website here. And again, Visual Studio Code is a pretty popular cross-platform code editor. It runs on Linux, Windows, Mac. Okay, so we're on Linux there. We're in our Ubuntu 22.04 Linux environment here. Okay, so let's go with the website here. You can see the URL here, code.visualstudio.com. Okay. Usually you'll see these two main package formats, .deb and .rpm. So we're on POP, so we're on the Debian and Ubuntu family. So we're not going to go to RPM. We're going to go to the .deb download section here, so we'll click on that. And there's some stuff to read here while it's downloading the .deb file up here. And as you can see, it's 92 megabytes, and we're just about done. Okay, we're done. And you can always come back here and read this on your own later. Extensions and whatnot for steps. Okay, good. Okay, so we're pretty much done with the web page for now. So we'll minimize that. And of course, my default location for any browser downloads is the downloads folder. So we'll navigate there, and we'll take a look and see if we can find it. So VS Code. Actually, it's a little bit confusing. Everyone, I mean, I probably have been a victim too. You know, you think Visual Studio Code, it's always going to be with a V. Like when you're downloading the deb file, it's not really a V. It starts with the C. It's code, and actually, code is the same command that we're going to use later once we've installed it to launch it from the terminal. So yeah, it's code. It's not Visual Studio Code or VSC. That's what people refer to when they're just kind of bantering back and forth. But as far as as far as your OS environment's concerned, when you're dealing with it in the terminal and downloading stuff, it's always code. So don't be thrown off. Don't be looking for V stuff or typing in V. V commands that start with a V. Visual Studio Code or VSC. Always try to remember that Visual Studio Code is actually referred to as code. Okay. So you can see here the deb file. It's in our download folder here, and the version is what we downloaded. Okay, this is good. So we verified that it's here. Now I'm going to stay right here in this download folder. This is going to be my working directory. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this this program called GDebi. You could use APT, Aptitude, dpackage, and some others. Like Pop! OS has one called Eddy, EDDY, I believe it is. I like this GDebi. It didn't actually come with Ubuntu, I don't believe. I installed it separately, and you can either use it here in the terminal or use the GUI part of it here. Okay? So we're here in the download folder. This is our working directory, and we set it up here. Sudo session GDebi is what we're going to use. Now, the reason I like GDebi is because it resolves dependencies. Whereas if you might use a dpackage, it might not. You might be left hanging, and you have to hunt down dependencies. And dependency hell, or just dealing with dependencies, trying to track them down, could be a headache. So if they're resolved for you automatically by an installer, then that's a good route to go. So I'm going to use this utility called GDebi to install this Visual Studio Code .deb file. Okay, so I'll just type in a C, and then we'll try to autocomplete it. Okay, so I had to type in a C and an O. Then I tabbed it, and it found it. Okay, good. So I'm going to pass this .deb file into the GDebi program. Okay, so once you've keyed all that in, go ahead and enter on that, and it'll process that, and then it'll ask you if you want to install the package. You can read some stuff here. Okay, so yes, I want to install. So yes, enter on that, and wait for the installation process to complete as it unpacks and installs it. Okay, that didn't take too long. As you can see from all the output here, that everything went according to plan. It was unpacked, installed. Okay, we're good to go. There's no errors, and we're still in the download folder here. So I'm going to clear the prompt and go back to the home, clear it again, and it should have already put it on the path. So I should be able to launch Visual Studio Code from anywhere in the file system. Now I'm in my home directory. I'm no longer in the download folder as my working directory. My working directory is now the home folder. Okay, and I type in code. That should be the command to launch it from the terminal. So once you type that in and enter on that, let me go ahead and Kill the background there. Okay, there it is. It's initializing. Okay, good. And of course, you have to customize it. But there you go. We installed it from the .deb file, and we launched it from terminal. Now, I'm going to X this out. You can see it's activating and whatnot. So I'm going to X that out. Okay, we're done with terminal, so that can stay like that. And then I'm going to find it. The normal way people like to... It's good to launch it from terminal if there's problems, because if you launch it in the terminal, you might get some output here. So if there's any problem, it'll help you in troubleshooting, any launch issues. But that was good. So you can always come here. Of course, you don't really want to always launch things from the terminal. You have to keep the terminal open, and because if you kill the terminal, you'll kill the program, and vice versa. And it just takes up a tab in your terminal running that program for that session. So to me, that's not really very efficient unless you have to do it that way. Best way, obviously, is to go to your GUI and do it that way. Okay, so we go to the application drawer here. You see I got 3 sections. Okay, it's probably going to be in the last one. Okay, so it's not in the first one here. Click on the second, the middle section here, and it'll move me over to the next batch. And I don't see it here either. Okay, it should be in the last one, actually. That's okay. This is right where I would have expected to find it, and that's indeed where it is. Okay, so I'm going to hover. I'm going to mouse over it. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to launch it from the GUI. And there it is. And then I'm going to maximize it. And then, yeah, it comes up in dark mode, which for me is not preferred. And I don't really need this. You can always just there's somewhere where you can set it so this get started screen doesn't start. But you can see we're in dark mode here. But you can see it's been launched, it's been installed and launched. That's good. And then a couple things really quick before we wrap up the video here. You can come over here and check for updates and check the versions. You're gonna have to keep up on these, but again, I don't remember if this actually updated through the update mechanism here or through the terminal, but it's not really that hard. I remember it's been a couple weeks since I've done it, and if there's a new deb file, you just do the same process here, and it will go ahead and just overwrite the existing version, and you won't really have to do a lot of tinkering or configuration or anything like that. Okay, so you can see we're in dark mode here. A couple basic things that I like to do on a new installation of VS Code is, you get used to take a quick look, get used to the layout here. Get your side panel, very important here, and you have some when you're running your program code, you can see errors and warnings down here in your code. Right now we're clear. There's no code going on. This is extensions. We'll get into that in a moment here. Basically, a couple of things I like to do is go to the file section here. I always like to turn on autosave. That way you don't have to save it every time. It's just always saved for you. And then in preferences, I like to go to the color theme. I don't like dark mode. I usually go for something like solar. Yeah, to me this is good. Solarized light. That's good for me. So the file menu here is where you kind of want to go after you're done for the most part. Turn on autosave if you want. Preferences mainly is where you really want to spend a lot of time trying to get things tweaked up here. Usually out of the gate it's pretty good for me. Like I said, I like to go to the color theme and go to solarized light. Anything but a dark theme, it's just hard on my eyes. I like a little bit brighter stuff like this. This is good for me. So you want to go to the preferences here and poke around here. And then the other main thing is, now it's got integrated Git, which I don't use. I don't like to use Git that it provides. I like to just use Git in the terminal. I use the terminal to run the code. I create the code here in Visual Studio Code. Then I go to the terminal. I go to the project directory, and I run my compiler or my interpreter there. And any kind of linters, debuggers, I run them here as well. I don't like to use all the integrated stuff that's in the IDEs. I just like to keep things separate and use the terminal for as much as I can. For running the code, linting, and using Git. I use Git in the terminal to add, commit, and push to my GitHub repo. I don't like to really use all the integrated stuff here. Now, one thing you're going to have to use in the terminal, in the program itself here, in the window, is the extensions section here. So click on that, and depending on what language you're, there's already some stuff installed. It looks like they have a few extensions already installed. Not much, it looks like. They got a few things here, so you don't really want to deal with the installed. You want to just deal with whatever is recommended or popular, or just if you know what you're searching for, type it in here, and like for instance Python, key that in. I don't have to hit enter. Okay, then it brings up a bunch of Python extensions. And it's hard to figure out which ones to use. There's a lot. It really gets confusing. You can always do a Google search and see what Google comes up with, or you can go with name recognition. Microsoft. This one's usually a pretty good one here. So you're going to have to put in some thought as far as what extensions you're going to install. But you're going to have extensions for whatever language you're going to be coding in. So you're going to spend some time in the extensions section here. Otherwise, you're going to spend your time up here. You can toggle. I like to always kind of keep it closed if I can. That way I get a little bit more extra space on the screen here. But this is the main control you're going to be probably dealing with outside of like the extensions. And of course, at this point, I don't have anything. I don't have any project going on, so I don't have like a folder. I don't have any folders and files here to show, but this is where it would show up here. Your project, your coding project would show up here with the folders, files, and whatnot, and you just toggle it on and off like that. So that's pretty much about it. So we'll minimize that. In a brief little recap, we talked about what Visual Studio Code is and the different ways of doing it that are kind of the easy way, like in your terminal with your package manager or whatever GUI software store you might have on your distro. Kind of went the longer route here, went to the actual website of the program here, poked around, decided we need a .deb because we're in a pop distro. Ubuntu, a Ubuntu Linux environment here, and then once that was downloaded, we found it in the terminal in the download folder, and we verified that it was the right download. Used the gdebi .deb package installer to install the program, and everything went smoothly there. Launched Visual Studio Code from the terminal with the code command, and that everything launched. That was fine. And then went to the application folder and found the icon there and launched it. From the GUI interface there, and then wound up here, and I showed you how to check for updates and the version, and how to toggle the Explorer on and off, and go into the preferences here and make it look good here to your preference, whatever looks good to you, as far as the themes and whatnot, the icons. So like if you create a Python source code file, it'll have a little Python icon, the snake or whatever. So it's cool, little customizations you can do here. And of course, the important one, the Git, the extension section here, where you're going to have to install extensions for whatever programming language that you're coding in, that you're programming in. And I threw in a little bit of extra opinion about not using the integrated tools that are in IDEs and code editors. Like for instance, there'll be Git will be integrated, and some other things might be integrated too. I like to do things kind of separately in the code. I'm sorry, do separately in the terminal. Use Git and linting and actually running the compiler, compiling the source code with the compiler or the interpreter in the terminal rather than letting the IDE do everything for me. Okay, so that was how to install the Visual Studio Code editor on Ubuntu Linux 22.04. I'm Paul, and this was another video from the How to Linux Research Labs. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to your comments and your feedback. Thank you.